In this video, I'm going to share with you two recent events that I thought were not possible. I want to share with you something that can quite possibly happen to your claim. So I want to share with you these two things that before I didn't think were possible, but they are, and I want to share these two things with you. Now, the first one is I was helping a veteran with a claim, in fact, numerous claims, and he put in for PTSD, one of the many. And he, of course, was scheduled a C&P exam. Now, his story is that he was a mechanic in the Army in the late 90s, early 2000s. And he was stationed in Germany. And there was an event where it was during the winter time, snow and ice on the ground, and he slipped and fell and hit his head on a vehicle. And he was knocked unconscious. And there was a witness to that event. For his claim, luckily, he was able to locate that veteran, that person who was there that witnessed the event. So we were able to, or he was able to get a buddy statement confirming this event. Now so got the buddy statement confirming that event, and by happen chance, he came to discover that at one point he did have a brain scan. And this is why, once again, as I emphasized in other videos, where the name of this channel is Situation Dictates. Your situation is unique to you and your experiences in the military. He luckily was able to contact or be in touch with the person who actually witnessed. And if you can imagine this was over 20 years ago. And so he luckily was able to contact with someone he served with who remembered that event. And I'm certain, I think in any case, really, if you witness somebody being knocked out, especially slipping and falling and hitting their head, and I think that's something that perhaps you just might remember, or you have a higher chance of remembering. Well, luckily he got this. He received this, was able to obtain a buddy statement, and also this veteran, apparently he was this outgoing, really just friendly, really just almost the life of the party, so to speak, right? Really outgoing. Well, after his service, he became, or during his service, I should say, and his family noticed how different he was compared to before he was in the military. And he even states it himself of how pissed off he is at the world, and pissed that things get him startled, things get him mad easily. He's very quick to get angry. He's very confrontational, these sorts of things, where before he wasn't like this. Now, present time, right, 2025, he finally submits these claims, and he submits a claim for PTSD. And during his C&P exam, at the end, the psychologist stated that she did not know whether it was PTSD or a traumatic brain injury. He didn't think nothing of it, so went through the C&P exam and was waiting for the results. Next thing you know, he gets a call to schedule an appointment for TBI. Now, here's the interesting thing, that we didn't submit a claim, or he didn't submit a claim for TBI. And it's not very common, or really, I'm not sure how common it is, but in my experiences and all the work that I've done, and the years that I've worked under a VSO, never heard of such a thing, that the VA actually took and saw a veteran's situation and put in a claim for that veteran. Now, this is what the VA should do, in the sense where, and think about this. Let's say, for example, a veteran put in for GERD. Let's just say, for example. And in those medical documentation, there's intestinal issues, there's IBS, there's these documentation, there's a diagnosis for IBS. Let's just say, for example, and this veteran only, by whatever chance, only submitted a claim for GERD. Excuse me here for a minute. Wow, excuse me for that. My my nose began to itch pretty intensely. So imagine the VA is looking at these documents. A veteran submits a claim for GERD. They're reading through the documents that were submitted, and they notice, or just happen to notice, that the veteran has a diagnosis for IBS. Let's just say, for example. And the VA, more likely than not, is not going to then submit a claim or say, hey, veteran, you have a diagnosis for IBS. You're an Iraq war veteran. You know that this is presumptive? I don't think so. But in this case, a veteran went to his CMP exam for PTSD. The psychologist told him, I'm not sure if this is PTSD or a TBI. Next thing he knows, he's having a CMP exam for TBI and is asking, is this even possible? Well, apparently it is, because he did go in for his TBI exam. And quite honestly, I'm very surprised, because I'm certain there are many veterans who could have submitted a claim for X medical issue, but for whatever reason, the veteran did not put in a claim for that, for whatever reason, and the VA is not going to do anything, right? Like, I just don't see it. In fact, I had a higher, this is another thing that I'm thinking of at the moment, but in fact, I had a higher level interview, and the person who was interviewing me, who was allowing me to make my statement, at the end mentioned, do you know that your lower back should be actually at, the next higher percentage? He mentioned it should be the next percentage higher. He goes, yeah, that's what it should be. Now, imagine the VA looks at, now that the VA leaves that up to the veteran. When should that be the case? Shouldn't the VA, if they see something where the veteran either has documentation but just did not submit the claim, shouldn't they say something or do something for the veteran? In this case, they are, but are they doing that often enough? And two, are they looking at claims to where if a veteran is at X and sees that they should be at a higher percentage, wouldn't that be something? Right? So this first one is, once again, it is possible for the VA to submit a claim when there perhaps should be. In this case, for my friend who went in for a PTSD, the VA ended up changing or submitting a TBI claim for him. Now, why are they doing that? We'll certainly find out. We don't know the results yet as far as him being approved for PTSD or maybe even TBI, but can you imagine he gets approved for TBI and it was all of the result of the VA doing the right thing for this veteran, and perhaps they should do it for every veteran, right? So that's the first example that I want to share with you. The second one is after a higher level review, right? So a higher level review is not to submit new and relevant information. That's a supplemental claim. A higher level review is basically saying to the VA, as professionally and as nicely as you can, you made a mistake. And here are the reasons, or here is what you didn't look at and use for the decision. And I have had a couple of higher level reviews where I submitted solid, backed by regulations, the 38 CFR, the M2, M21, literally down the line. And I've had higher level reviews where they have said, I'm going to give you your time to shine. Basically, the higher level review is only for the interviewer to hear what you have to say and why you disagree with their decision. It's not based off of the information you already gave to them, not new information. So this person, the interviewer, told me, I'm going to approve your request and approve this claim. However, I'm going to give you your time to shine and say what you are planning to say, because I listed out line by line where the VA failed to take in consideration the rules and regulations for a claim. All right. So what happened was, and here's what can happen. Here's the example, is that a veteran submitted a claim, secondary at the same time submitted a claim for headaches, or so TMJ was the primary and headaches was the secondary, and were submitted at the same time. So the TMJ was the primary and headaches was the secondary. So a primary claim has certain rules and regulations, and secondary claims have rules and regulations. It happened that the veteran was denied TMJ. As soon as the veteran was denied TMJ, he submitted for a higher level review because they used the opinion of a nurse practitioner's stating that the TMJ was not caused by military service. They This is why it's important to read those decision letters to see why they made their decision. And it stated that the opinion of the CMP examiner, right, they favored that opinion. However, the veteran had a DBQ by a professional, by a licensed dentist who specializes in TMJ. So that was a huge, taking the opinion of a nurse practitioner over the opinion of a dentist, a professional dentist who specializes in TMJ. So that was the higher level review, or that was the request for the higher level review. However, when the primary claim is denied, they're not, the secondary is denied, because the secondary is based off the first one being denied. You always want to try to make your claims primary. Never, try. Of course, there's secondary claims, but you want to make the most of them being primary. Now, what happened is, because the primary TMJ was denied, they went ahead and denied the secondary. However, the veteran submitted a claim before that secondary was decided. The veteran submitted a claim, or a higher level review for the primary TMJ in this case. So the VA, even though the veteran submitted a higher level review for TMJ, the primary, the VA should not have made a decision on the secondary, because the first is now being requested for a higher level review. It needs to be reviewed. But the VA went ahead and denied the secondary, right? Even though the primary went to higher level review. Now, TMJ, after the higher level review, was approved. And because of that, the VA now should do the work and see that the veteran had a secondary claim to the primary. Now, if you don't know this, the veteran, they may just be happy that they got the primary approved. They may not know that the secondary shouldn't have been denied, or that that the VA should take the initiative and see the claim that was submitted at the same time and reopen or consider that claim now, because the first claim was approved. So what happened to this case? What ended up happening, the veteran submitted a higher level review because the secondary was denied. It took the veteran almost 2.5 months to get that interview, and now the VA has changed it over to a supplemental claim. Now, this is the part where, can the VA do that? Well, yes, right? This can happen. These are things that I want to share with you that can happen. And if you are in this situation, this is what you want to or be on the lookout for. And this is another reason why I strongly encourage you, if you didn't watch my previous video about submitting a letter of intent, to have a login.gov access or an ID.me, because then you can go on to the va.gov website and see where your claims are at. Now, the VA then changed it from higher level review and changed it over to a supplemental claim. And why did they do this? Well, because there's no if the only reason why they could be doing this is that they're considering now, or they're considering that the approved primary, which was TMJ, is new and relevant information, because a supplemental claim is only for a claim that has been denied, and in that time frame there was something new. For example, an MRI, right? I know that at one time I submitted a claim, and during that time I happened to get an MRI. Well, my claim came back, and but during that time period of when the claim is with the VA, I didn't have those MRIs. But now that I do, I can then submit a whole new claim or submit a supplemental claim. I ended up doing a whole new claim for an increase. Basically, it got worse, and I had proof to show that got worse. Now, so in this case, the VA is now, which the surprise is changing it to a supplemental claim. The VA is taking the initiative in doing that. And so my understanding is that they are taking in consideration the approved TMJ. The secondary was denied initially because the first was denied, and now they're looking at it as new and relevant information to now consider that the primary was approved, and now they're looking at it, and now it's in the process. So two things that can happen to your claim that I don't think often happens. That for the first one, the only reason why the TBI exam was initiated, which now there's a claim for TBI, was because the psychologist stated she was not sure whether it was PTSD or a TBI. Now that could be, now the exam was for TBI, or no, the first one was for TBI. So he obviously went to another exam specifically for TBI. The veteran is already diagnosed with PTSD and major depressive disorder. So we have to wait and see. But the surprise is that the VA submitted for a TBI. The second example is that the VA, now the higher level review, now let me back up and let me share this, because the higher level review could be denied. This is what could have happened. And this is why I'm saying it's maybe the VA is looking into some things to where the higher level review could have been denied. Then the veteran, working with a competent VSO or person who knows this system, would then know to submit a supplemental claim based off of the primary being approved. That's what technically would have happened if the veteran could have then realized, okay, the higher level review was denied. If they're working with somebody and know what the options are, and the VA will state what the options are. In your decision letter, they show higher level review, supplemental claim, or board of veteran appeals. So they do share what are those next steps. But the VA went ahead and initiated the supplemental claim, which should happen. It shouldn't. The veteran should not be denied the higher level review, which most likely is going to happen, but it's being replaced by the supplemental claim so that it will now be taken under consideration on the basis that the primary claim was eventually approved. So I wanted to share this with you because remember, situation dictates. Your situation is unique. And I know we hear a lot of stories of, veterans were approved for this and why wasn't I approved? And you are unique. Your situation is unique. I'm almost certain that if we can do an audit, right, of a lot of claims that were denied for veterans, people who were just submitting claims without really, as I mentioned before in my previous videos, it's like going to court and you want to present the best case possible. I'm almost certain that this whole idea of nexus letters, which are great, they're needed, have been more popular today because when I was working with the VSO, I didn't really hear. In fact, I don't think I did hear anything about nexus letters, but they became a very powerful. But it's still, the VA still wanted that medical connection. But what VSOs were doing back then is they were connecting. They were using like their own kind of um, almost research to show veterans who were in this location in Iraq were exposed to this certain thing, or Afghanistan, or all these different scenarios, or these different MOSs, and being exposed to certain toxins and chemicals and accidents and injuries and this sort of thing. And they were kind of putting that connection together. But it was always much more. And VSOs would request, doctor letters, letters from a doctor. But they've gotten even more powerful today where we're including medical research and literature to back up these studies that have been done on, work-related injuries in the military, environmental exposures for those who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Once again, your MOS, the location of where you served, all these different things, right? So that's how they even came up with the presumptive. Like if you served in these areas, it's more likely than not you're going to develop something. And that's the thing that we often don't hear about when we enlist in the military. It's like you are now going to be at a higher risk than the average person of developing X or these sorts of injuries. Of course, we hear the military and you're tough and suck it up and go about your day. And you literally had to be on your last breath to be allowed to go to sick call, right? Can you remember? I mean, remember that I was in the military in two different time periods in the mid '90s and in just after year two in 2005 to 2013, right? So I remember in active Marine Corps, you literally almost had to be on your deathbed to be allowed to go to sick call. And oftentimes you weren't complaining about anything. So when they're asking for medical documentation, it's like, yeah, I might hurt my ankle, but I still had to go for the run. I still had to go on the hump. I still had to go and get up and go to work, right? So once again, those are two things that can happen. And once again, as I like to mention, all claims that are approved by the VA are what are called evidence-based claims. If you don't know what an evidence-based claim is, check out my video up here to where you can learn about what an evidence-based claim is so that your claim is a solid evidence-based claim backed by many different things that can help you in winning your claim. All right. Thank you for watching and go check out that video right now. Bye-bye.